Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today we're going to continue our segments where we sort of analyse codexes and look at the sort of tactical use of units, abilities, etc. throughout it. Today I'm going to focus on the new Chaos Space Marine Codex. Now you might be saying, one, it came out a few weeks ago, Ross, why are you doing it now? It takes time, you know, I had a lot of writing to do and things. And secondly, what happened to the AdMech stuff? Well, I'm still working on that. As you might know, the AdMech rules are going to get updated with the Codex, so I'll cover them later on and may have to update a few videos. Anyway, so let's not talk about stuff I'm not doing, let's talk about the Chaos Space Marines. So in this video I am going to cover sort of universal special rules for Chaos Space Marines. I'm going to cover psychic abilities, and I'm also going to cover Legion traits, which we all absolutely love. So let's get started. In this video I'm going to be focusing on, firstly, the special rules. So let's begin with obviously the big one that came out, which is Death to the False Emperor. Now, Death to the False Emperor is a rule I have been known to sometimes forget, as some of us have, because it is a new rule and it only takes part in a certain situation, a bit like, I think, Soul Burst. It's one of those ones that take effect and you might forget in the heat of battle. So it's important to drill into your playstyle when it's going to take effect and how it properly works, and there's a few caveats that are important to remember. So, key thing to remember is that it only affects when you are playing against Imperial units, so you're not going to get any buffs if you're playing Xenoses, which is a shame, but there's a lot of Imperial players, and obviously Chaos Space Marines have a bit of a hatred towards them. How it works is that you gain an attack in the fight phase, basically make another attack if you score a 6 when you're rolling to hit. 6 or above, now that is important. You may not generate an extra attack for rolling Death to the False Emperor, so no getting more and more attacks on top of it, as far as I am aware. And dice modifiers do play a big effect into this. I'll talk about that in a bit more detail in a second. But to give an example, is like spell like Prescience. You can obviously turn this into a 5+, which is awesome. So some examples of when you'll not be able to achieve Death to the False Emperor, and I feel this is important for non-Chaos Space Marine players, because your opponent might say to you, hey, you know, alright, yeah, I've got 6s, you know, I get an extra attack from it. Hang on a second. So when you have negative modifiers to your hit roll, keep in mind this is only in close combat, I should really say that as well. If you get -1 to your to hit roll, you can't actually get Death to the False Emperor because you can't naturally roll a 6. So an example of that would be one I've actually done myself in a video, which was really unprofessional. Huron Blackheart using Tyrant's Claw. Now that does have -1 to hit when you're facing Imperial forces, so that might make you think, well, depending on what you're playing against, you might decide to use the Power Axe he's got. That way, if you use the Power Axe, you can still benefit from Death to the False Emperor, but the Tyrant's Claw can't without a buff. Power Fists. All Power Fists, as far as I'm aware, that Chaos Space Marines have, there might be special characters that don't have it, they have -1 to hit. So with Power Fists, and Games Workshop actually mentioned this specifically, don't benefit from Death to the False Emperor. So if your opponent goes, hey, I've just hit you with, you know, a whole ton of Power Fists, I've got 6 6s, I'm going to get 6 extra attacks, you can go, hang on a second, no extra attack for you on those ones. Very, very important Power Fists because they hurt. And I think a couple of Plague Marine new units as well also have the -1 with some of their weapons as well. So that's really important for Imperial players to remember, that if your opponent does have modifiers and if you apply modifiers to it, if they can't roll a 6 or above, then you will not get Death to the False Emperor. However, here's some bonuses for you Chaos players to try and mitigate this and obviously help you as well. So there's a big one, which is Prescience, a psychic ability I will go into more detail later on. It adds 1 to all your hit rolls. As far as I remember, it's shooting and in close combat. But obviously if you're getting that +1 to hit, which is excellent, you're activating Death to the False Emperor on 5+ essentially, because you roll a 5 +1, it becomes a 6. You got it. And then obviously if you roll a 6, you got a 7, you got it as well, because it's 6+. That means also just say your power fists, if you do get the modifiers, can actually benefit from Death to False Emperor, as long as you can modify your dice to become a 6. First among traitors, the Black Legion Warlord trait. Won't be going into Warlord traits in this video. Allows you to activate Death to False Emperor on 5+, which can be further buffed, I believe, by Prescience, which is awesome. And Icon of Excess, similar to the above, which is only available to units with the Mark of Slaanesh. But if you have Emperor's Children and you activate Prescience as well, just gives you a lovely ability to activate Death to False Emperor. But it's really important to know that it is only going to affect units when you are engaged in combat with Imperial units. So I just wanted to make it clear, because some Imperial units, players won't know the exact wording of it. It is on a 6+ only, and don't let Chaos players roll over you with loads of extra attacks that they don't deserve, and Chaos players make sure that you're playing the game right. Next, for special abilities I'll go into, is Demonic Rituals. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this because I'm not much of a demon player, unless they're in engine format. If you want to know a bit more on demons, I'm sure at some point David will cover demons in more detail, so wait for him to get around to doing some videos on that. However, I will speak about sort of the key functions on it and what you can do. So, if you are going to do, demon summoning, and great for you, sacrifice some goats to the Chaos Gods, bring on some demons if you want. How the rule works is you can choose to summon instead of moving, so that's important. So no demon princes flying about an extra 12 inches and going, cool, I'm going to move here and summon. You have to sacrifice your moving, so that really limits your sort of mobility. You need to plan for it the sort of turn before, where you're going to be and where you're going to summon. You choose one of the Chaos Gods if you're unaligned, but if you are aligned, it has to be a unit that you are that is aligned with your god as well. So say if it's Khorne, it has to be Bloodletters, or you can't summon a Bloodthirster, there's too many points, I'll explain that. But it has to be basically one of the Chaos Gods ones. If you're aligned, you get all the choices in the world. Basically then you roll 3d6 and you summon a unit that has a power level equal to or lower to the total rolled. So obviously if you roll 3d6 and you get a 9, you can summon any unit that has a power value that is equal to 9 or lower, which is kind of cool. Important to remember, this is treated as reinforcement, so if you're playing matched play, then you have to pay for the points of the unit that you are summoning. This unit must appear within 12 inches of the character that is summoning, and as far as I know, any character can do this, so that's pretty cool. And it has to be 9 inches away from any enemy model, so it has to be more than 9 inches away, similar to deep striking. Remember, if you roll any doubles, you take a mortal wound. If you roll triples, well, firstly you're awesome, and you're going to take D3 mortal wounds, which obviously hurts, but you do get to place a demon unit of your choice. As far as I know, you can actually summon a greater demon of Slaanesh some way. I need to check the power value of a greater demon of Slaanesh, but if you can, really cool, and it'll just probably work as a psychological factor on your opponent. Again, as I said, I am not a big on the whole summoning thing, especially when I'm playing Chaos Space Marines. I'm sure many people can work it in a really, really scary way. I haven't yet, and you might not see in many of my videos where I'm playing. But I know David's a big fan of demons, and he might surprise us all with some reinforcements. But me personally, because it's reinforcements, you have to sort of dedicate the points away. I prefer them already on the field. Let us know, guys, have you managed to make demons, summoning demons work really well? I'd love to hear some sort of stories of time where you've gone, wow, I just summoned a really crazy unit and scare my opponent, so leave some comments on that, because I'd love to hear some stories on that. Next one is a new rule that we got with the Codex that was not in part of the indexes, and that is Despoiler of the Galaxy. I'm going to go into this one fairly simply because it's kind of like an old rule that was there before, and it's simply, if you played 7th edition, then it's basically you've got objectives secured with your troops. So how it works is that basically now I'm going to have to read here because I wrote this down and it's quite complicated. If a unit within range of an objective and the enemy has more models around it, hey, you control it. So basically if you've got, you know, Spoiler of the Galaxy and you're near an objective, you're within range to take it, but your opponent has more troops, which would usually say they take it, because you've got this, it sort of overrides the more model rule. However, if your opponent has a similar rule, then it goes back to counting models. So, you know, yeah, really handy, really helpful. Really helps for cultists because they are obviously troops, and I believe they do get this because they have the Hereticus status keyword, correct me if I'm wrong. And and because they've been reduced in points as well, it really brings them down as, you know, objective holders, whether they run out and go and get objectives or sit in the back in case your opponent deep strikes in and then moves really close to objective. As long as you've got them sitting there, even with one, and they've got 40 guys around it, you should still control it, which is excellent. Just say a point on cultist. I once won a game because I had a objective secure cultist running down the line of orcs, throwing everything they could at a single cultist, and I mean it was an ungodly amount of firing from David, and he didn't kill him, and I won the game by taking the objective. I've never seen David more angry at cultists in my life, and I used to use cultists a lot. So I'm always a big fan of them. Again, objective secured again, although it's called the Spoiler of the Galaxy. Really helpful in tactical games to obviously secure points. I'm a real big fan of it, but keep in mind, naturally Loyalists got this too. I don't know the name of their version, but all their troops also get this as well, which is really handy, and I imagine we're probably going to see it into other codexes as well, but we'll wait to see when that happens. So let's move on to, and this is going to be probably long parts to come here, the Dark Hereticus Discipline. Now, I've had a lot of fun with this. I'm notoriously bad at the Psychic phase. I once lost 2 Demon Princes in the same round of Psychic phase in a Apocalypse game, so after that I was banned from Psychic. But I've got faith that 8th edition is going to be, you know, sort of my round of Psychic, and so far I've been doing okay. But with the Codex now, we have a whole bunch of new abilities. Originally in the Index we had 3, we now have 6, along with 3, how can I put it, mark specific abilities. So basically if you have the mark of a Chaos God, you can use their specific ability. Obviously there is one mark of something that did not get any psychic abilities, but hey, they're out for blood and guts, so they get, you know, more attacks, I guess. They're not doing psychics. So let's look at these in more detail. First one is Infernal Gaze. Warp Charge 5. Select a visible enemy unit within 18 inches and roll 3 dice. Any 4 pluses that you roll with those 3 dice cause a mortal wound. This is basically your other ranged psychic attack on top of Smite. Now I believe Smite is also a little bit more reliable in terms of how you use it, but certainly if you've got a Psyker you're determined to sort of have as throwing mortal wounds on people, you can't really go wrong with going, right, cool, Infernal Gaze, casting Smite, something else as well, and just chuck mortal wounds at your opponent's face. Really, really handy. We've then got Death X, Warp Charge 8. Select a visible unit within 12 inches. Until the start of the next psychic phase, that unit cannot take invul saves. I cannot stress how happy I was to see this ability. Now I know the Space Marines have a version called Null Zone, I believe, and it's also quite handy as well. Not sure how it works, but this is really good. So I really like this ability, as I really hate Storm Shields. I really hate Storm Shields. I see them on Terminators a lot, I see them on Thunder Wolf Cavalry a lot, and it makes them really hard to sometimes take down. So especially with your heavy hitting last cannons, and they go, ah, 3-up invul, not today. You can say today, because basically you can just take away their invul save. Super handy, I really like it. I definitely, if I'm playing an opponent that is heavily spamming invul saves, which tends to be a lot of, you know, Imperial units for like their big things with lots of wounds, really want to try this. I've not had a chance to try it out yet against David with his Storm Shields or his Thunder Wolf Cavalry, because he's got some as well, he's got Space Wolves. Generally really excited to see that one. Next up we have Gift of Chaos. It's a Warp Charge 6. Select a visible unit within 6 inches of the Psyker and roll a d6. If the result is greater than the model's toughness, it suffers d3 plus 3 mortal wounds. Ouch. If a character is slain by this, then add a spawn within 1 inch of the module before it is removed. So this could be helpful because rules is written, you target a model, however rules is written as well. Mortal wounds, I believe, also carry over onto units, so you're supposed to target like a model and go, that one's going to get, hurt. And you choose, obviously the lowest toughness you can find in that unit. And if you do manage to, get above its toughness, then you're causing D3 plus mortal wounds. But as rules is written, mortal wounds should carry over. So it sounds a little bit messy on that one. I'd love to hear your comments on that because it does say it targets the character. But rules is written, those carry over to the unit as well. And then you might get a free spawn from it as well. Not going to really work for high toughness units, so big monstrous creatures with high toughnesses, dreadnoughts, things like that. You're not. I don't think you can physically get above their toughness, but certainly for things with toughness 4, you can cause potentially D3 plus 3 mortal wounds. Really, really nice. Whether it's better than Infernal Gaze, I'd have to see, because Infernal Gaze you don't need to roll above the toughness, but certainly you can use command points to re-roll and try and get that and assassinate something, and then turn them into a spawn, which is awesome. Prescience, now that's the one I've mentioned already, and I've used it a number of times because it's really, really good. Warp Charge 7, select a friendly Hereticus status unit within 18 inches, so good range, and you add 1 to hit rolls for that unit till the start of the next cycle phase. Awesome, love it. This can, as I mentioned, synergise well with Death to the False Emperor, because when you're adding +1 to your hits, you're obviously now activating technically Death to the False Emperor on your rolls of 5, and your Power Fist can benefit from it as well. Well, I didn't realise that it says to your hit rolls, so that technically counts your shooting attacks as well, which is awesome. I did not know that, so maybe you've got a Hellbrute bearing down the field and you want to give him +1 to the shots he's going to make before he charges unit, and generally get really good shooting and also really good assault as well. Generally a great ability, one I'm probably going to use quite a lot, but I'm going to try and vary it up and use different psychic abilities because, as I said, this is Ross's addition for psychic, maybe. We then have Diabolical Strength, which is Warp Charge 6. Select a friendly Heretical Astaris model within 12 inches, so not as huge range but still not bad, of the Psyker, and until the next psychic phase, that model has +2 to its strength and +1 to its attacks. As only targets a model and not a unit, you probably want to target your big things, so your heavy hitters that do have the Heretic Astaris rule. I don't think you can get demon engines with that. I'd have to check. But do you know that what is big and does have the Heretic Astaris rule and is a monster in combat anyway, and as a Psyker themselves, Demon Princes. Adding +2 strength to Demon Prince and +1 attack is generally really, really good, really, really nice. Whether it's got a place up with Prescience, I don't know. Prescience has bigger range and everything, but certainly if you're running things like multiple Demon Princes, I think people have been doing that. I haven't done it yet, but buffing them up that way really works well. And if you take a Demon Prince and you want him to get in combat, they're not as, Demon Princes are not as scary in combat as they used to be, but they're certainly mobile, and being able to buff them up is certainly an excellent way to do it. So if you're going to go with Diabolical Strength, maybe think about Demon Prince. Give it a try. If you have, let me know, because I will certainly try at one point. Next up we have Warp Time, which is my second favourite of the psychic abilities, and I have used it a number of times already. Warp Charge 6, select a Heretical Astaris unit within 3 inches of the Psyker, so really close range for that one. And that unit can immediately move as if it was the movement phase. Pretty cool, pretty good. This ability is awesome and can really throw your dangerous units right into your opponent's face. I've done it once, twice, just to sort of guarantee your assaults. Maybe you want to actually just get better range with your rapid fire guns, but generally I think you're going to be using this on your heavy hitters just to guarantee they are going to get where they need to be and reduce that assault space. One thing I would notice is that with the 3-inch range, it means your Psyker is probably going to be nearby them, possibly in a Rhino with them, or a Land Raider. And when you obviously move this unit further away, it does isolate your Psyker because they don't go with them, and that can leave them vulnerable. So a wee bit dangerous in that one. I think I used this once and I had Huron and the Psyker left behind. Now, I didn't get punished for it because they managed to get in combat as well. But generally, just that extra movement really can make a terrifying unit get even closer, especially if you've moved up to Rhino, then you deploy them, then you use warp time. You're going to get in combat unless your opponent's hightailed it the previous turn. So I'm really happy with it. I think I used it with Possessed and it was awesome. And I think I used Presence with them as well, which was awesome. So when it comes to Psychic Phase and the general ones, I'm really happy with Warp Time, really happy with Prescience. But I see a place for Diabolical Strength as well. There are situations, Infernal Gaze if you want to throw out Mortal Wounds, and then you obviously have Gift of Chaos as well, which, you know, I would love to see work really well. I really want to try it out, especially on a guard character as Toughness 3. That might be excellent. I'm looking for you, Will. But there's also 3 other abilities, as I mentioned as well. Now, they are only accessible to sorcerers who have the mark of specific gods. That is, you know, the mark of Tzeentch, the mark of Nurgle, and the mark of Slaanesh. So what are their abilities? You get extra spells, but you do have to sacrifice one of your Hereticus status ones as well. Or yeah. So we've got Weavers of Fates, which is Warp Charge 6, is the Tzeentch only one. So you've got to have the mark of Tzeentch. Select a visible Tzeentch Hereticus status, so it can only affect Hereticus status units with the mark of Tzeentch that are within 18 inches of the Psyker. Yes, this unit can add 1 to its invul save, or if it does not have an invul save, it gets a 5-up invul. Very awesome for Tzeentch units, because if you've got like Rubric Marines, they have a really good invul already, which makes them very survivable against heavy hitting weapons. Adding 1 to that will make them even more survivable, and I believe if you've got a character, you get certain characters you can reroll 1s on your invul saves, just generally making the unit really, really hard to bring down. I've also heard words of like people using this with Magnus to give him a 3-up invul, rerolling 1s, which is awesome, Magnus, good for you. I've not had a chance to play against Magnus yet, but if you look at our social media, you will see that he has arrived. He looks awesome, and unfortunately I will be on the receiving end of Magnus very, very soon. David knows about this ability, he knows what he's going to do. Please tell me how to counter Magnus, because I know what he's going to do and it's going to be difficult, so let me know, because that would be really handy. We then have the Mark of Nurgle specific one, which is Miasma of Pestilence. Warp Charge 6. Select a visible Nurgle Heretic status units within 18 inches of the Psyker, so again, same range. Until the start of your next Psychic Phase, your opponent subtracts 1 from all hit rolls that target the unit. Now I believe this is for both shooting at them and in close combat, and really works well to make them a little bit more survivable, which is really nice because, you know, traditionally Nurgle units, they're survivable at the best of times. Having -1 to hit, really, really good. So you've got a really, really strong unit out front, and your opponent is clearly going to gun for them, so you're like, -1 to hit, not getting them today. Keep in mind, I think this does stack, and I'm going to go into Legion rules later, but it does stack with Legion rules, and you can give marks to other legions. So say for instance you had Alpha Legions, and you decide to also give them the Mark of Nurgle, which I believe is legal. If you're playing Alpha Legions, you basically can make it, if you cast a spell on them, -2 to hit if you try to shoot a unit that is out with 12 inches of the unit shooting at them. So -2 to hit, as long as, you know, when you're firing you're more than 12 inches away, is amazing. So Alpha Legion, really think about Nurgle, might be quite useful for you, but we'll get into sort of Legion traits later on. Great ability, also loving it, really, really handy. We'll then go into the final one, which is the Slaanesh exclusive ability, which is called Delightful Agonies. Warp Charge 6. Select a visible Slaanesh unit, I think Slaanesh Heretic status unit, within 18 inches of the Psyker, and until the start of the next Psychic Phase, you roll a d6 for each time a unit loses a wound, and on a 5+, it does not lose the wound. Now as a Death Guard player, this really annoys me, because that's fundamentally giving, you know, Slaanesh units the disgusting resilient rule. Thanks, Games Workshop. You're making me feel a little awesome with our 5-up ignore. not today. You know, I can't complain. It's a really good ability to have if you have a unit that's quite heavy hitting, loads of wounds, and you want to try and avoid having them. 5 up, essentially Feel No Pain, as it used to be called in 7th edition. Works kind of really well. Has changed significantly, obviously, when you suffer, you know, D3 damage. You have to save all of them to you know, if you get 3 damage, you have to survive all 3 of them. But it does make it more survivable. The great things about these sort of extra abilities that work for the Mark exclusive ones is that they sort of synergize really well with the units themselves. So obviously with Tzeentch being the obvious best one because it buffs their involves, which is a huge part of Tzeentch. The -110 for Nurgle is really nice as well. I can see it being used quite a lot, which is really nice. And you know, 5 up, Feel No Pain, I'm just going to call it Feel No Pain for Slaanesh. Also really nice and highly recommend it. What are the priorities for you guys when it comes to psychic abilities? I would love to know what your thoughts are. Please comment below. I'm going to be trying them all out in different phases. As I said, 8th edition is my psychic phase. I'm not going to peril as much as I did, hopefully. So yeah, that is the psychic abilities. Loads of new abilities and loads of options for us, and generally I'm really pleased with them, and I think they do give a run for the money on other armies with psychic abilities, though we've got plenty more to see in the future. So finally in this video, I'm going to get into the one that we absolutely loved. I'm going to read this because I wrote a nice wee bit out. Finally we get into the good stuff, the part where back in December I think the whole Chaos community cried out in joy when Games Workshop gave us Legion traits. And thankfully we have them back in 8th edition really quickly. So there's a whole bunch of Legion traits to choose from here. We don't have, I believe, Thousand Suns Death Guard, though when I film this I've actually seen Death Guard. And yeah, I know Thousand Suns and Death Guard as far as I know, but I have seen Death Guard and Thousand Suns will probably not be far away. So let's have a look at them. Let's begin with Iron Warriors. Now I really enjoy Iron Warriors. I've used them in the past. I play them sometimes in 30k in my own time. So Iron Warriors have the Siege Lord's Legion trait. Enemy units attacked by units with this trait do not gain the bonus to their saving throw for being in cover, and you can reroll failed wounds rolls when targeting buildings. So yeah, this is identical to the Imperial Fists Legion trait, which is hilarious in lore-wise because obviously they hate each other. It's also hilarious because when the Imperial Fists Legion trait came out first, I gave David a bunch of abuse because I went, ha, it's not that great because cover's a lot more harder to get in this edition, and also we don't really play many buildings. I've not played a game with a building I've had to wound in a long time, so that reroll when wounding buildings is kind of difficult in that one. Being able to, you know, mitigate cover is really handy. Forge is going to work for David really well because I tend to try and spam Shroud Slam with Admech, so he was like, ha, well, not with his Imperial Fists. Darn it. But still, not a bad trait, not great. You're mainly probably going to use it for anything that your opponent's hunkering down. If you've got your Havocs bearing down, because you're Iron Warriors, you're going to go and, you know, your Havocs against their Devastators, you're going to go, ha, well, you're not getting cover, but I most certainly am. Unless you're playing Imperial Fists, then you're calling out a draw. Okay, we'll then look at Night Lords. Now again, I'm actually a huge fan of Night Lords as well. I wanted to play them 30k, but I haven't had time to collect a force, and generally I just love the fluff on them. So they've got Terror Tactics. Models in the enemy unit must subtract 1 from the leadership characteristic for each unit that is within 6 inches of them, to a maximum of -3. Extremely fluffy, and basically, you know, a bunch of scary Batmen running about, scaring units, awesome. I think it can be buffed with stratagems and Icon of Despair, which you need to be Mark of Nurgle for to get, so Nurgle really works kind of well with the other legions. If you want to take a Mark plus a Legion and it's not Death Guards, then, you know, Night Lords and Alpha Legion work really well. It's causing real damage to the morale phase in your, during your opponent's morale phase. Obviously you want to use some fast units to make sure you are getting that small 6-inch gap, so obviously Raptors, because that works out for fluff, because Night Lords love Raptors. Warp Talons, though I've never used Warp Talons at all, I assume probably can use this as well. which is really nice, but generally if you're fighting armies with low morale, this can be quite scary. As long as you're very precise about where you're placing your units, you can all you need to do is cause a couple of wounds, their morale is already broken by Night Lords. Generally really cool. I will love to try this at one point, but I'm going to need to get some more raptors to probably pull it off. Word bearers have profound zeal. You can reroll failed morale tests for units with this trait. I'm struggling with this one. I know reroll morale is just a general, I think, a nation no fear for Space Marines have it. You know, they don't have Death to the False Emperor, obviously. They reroll morale, and it's nice for them to have it as a general rule, but for us, for the Legion trait, I'm just struggling a wee bit. The worst part is that if you re-roll it, you can actually get worse and cause yourself more damage. So yeah, it's not bad, but I generally prefer to try and be immune to morale if possible. As a Legion trait, I'm struggling to see it. Let me know best ways to do it. I think people have talked about, you know, if you're using Blobs of Cultists, you get to re-roll that. Morale might be quite useful because there's nothing worse than rolling 6 and losing more. But there are cheap models anyway on Cultists, so you give them better abilities, guys. That's what I think. Let us know if you've managed to work Word Bearers work quite well. Behave your word bearer player. There you go. Emperor's Children, flawless perfection. Units with this trait always fight first in the fight phase, even if they didn't charge. If the enemy unit has a unit that charged or similar abilities, then you alternate choosing units to fight, starting with the player whose turn it is. Now originally I gave this, you know, ability sort of a lot of abuse. I was like, but if you're charging with a big heavy hitter unit, you're going to be hitting first anyway, it's going to happen. And then if you're charged by your opponent with a heavy hitter unit, he's obviously going to choose, or he or she is going to choose, you know, that unit to strike first anyway, because they obviously want to cause much damage. But it does help because, you know, if you are facing an army that is going to be making multiple charges, you can obviously try and whittle down their units as well in between, and generally cause a little bit of havoc rather than they charge mass amounts and go to fight first and cause so much havoc. You can at least cause some damage in between. But what I also didn't realise is that I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Noise Marines have 2 attacks base. So obviously with Emperor's Children you're going to take Noise Marines because they have some sick weapons, and 2 attacks base does mean they have extra hit power, and being able to have that sort of, you know, go between them fighting is excellent. And then if you're in prolonged combats for multiple phases, then you strike first, which is pretty awesome. I'm not 100% sold on it, but I've seen the Warhammer community, I've read a lot of comments saying it's absolutely excellent. Give me abuse if you go, no Ross, it's an excellent warlord trait. Then yeah, go ahead, tell me, but originally I was not set on it. We plan to have an Emperor's Children army in the future, and I will see eventually how this works, and if I'm wrong, I'll absolutely admit it. Gonna go with World Eaters next, and their Butcher's Nails. That's their Legion trait, by the way, what it's called. When a unit with this trait makes a successful charge, you can make 1 additional attack in the subsequent fight phase. So firstly, awesome name, very fluffy, because those World Eaters have those nails in their head and it's causing them problems and makes them a little bit more angry. It's basically giving you the old, when you charge you get +1 attack on the charge, which everyone lost but we all kind of loved. Well, I loved it and I sorely miss it. So it's really nice to see World Eaters get that back. Where it can work out really well, and I'll need to do a bit of reading to check if it's still the case, but I'm pretty sure it is. But you do this with Khorne Berserkers and they charge, and you only get this when you charge. You subsequently get it in their 2 fight phases, I believe, so you begin 2 extra attacks per Khorne Berserker, and they dish out a whole bunch of attacks already. So, you know, you get it in their first one they get to attack with, then you get it in their second one. Generally works really well with World Eaters. I've seen it in action, it hurt, it really hurt. I think it was in the battle report before this one, and oh, it was just awful for me because I was on the receiving end. We'll then go into the Black Legion trait, which is the Black Crusade. Add 1 to leadership characteristic of models in units with this trait. In addition, if a unit with this trait advanced, it treats all its rapid fire weapons as assault weapons until the end of its turn. Now the +1 leadership is actually really handy. I believe mathematically it actually works out better than the reroll of the Word Bearers one. I could be wrong in that, I've read that somewhere. But +1 to leadership just helps mitigate the morale phase, which is obviously awesome, and any other abilities your opponent might be throwing about. The other one as well, where basically turn your rapid fire weapons into assault weapons, I'm just not that sold on. To explain why, is that basically when you're advancing, you're getting -1 to hit, so if you've got like your plasma weapons and you decide to fire them as assault weapons, you're going to be overheating on 2s if you supercharge, which is really dangerous. And you can't charge anyway when you advance, so I'm struggling to see where that one works out best. I suppose the best way to look at it is that if you chose to advance your unit into a more, better location, possibly to get an objective, you can still fire your guns as assault weapons and you're not sacrificing them entirely. Another way I've read that some people, and this works out quite well, is if you're using flamers. Now obviously if you run you can't fire assault weapons. Wait, I have to look into that one. Basically I've told it's worked out for flamers as well, which I'm not sure, and I think it's if you use them as combi flamers it kind of works. Not too sure on that one either. It was a rough read on that one, but generally this Legion trait, not entirely sold on. +1 leadership's nice, making rapid fire into assault weapons when advancing. Not so much. I will be using Black Legion at some point because I absolutely love Abaddon. He's a really cool guy, really wish he had a better model. Hopefully in time we will get it. But if you are a Black Legion player, that's what we've got for them. So now we're about to get on to what I consider the 2 heavy hitter Legion traits. Beginning with Alpha Legion. Theirs is called Hidden in Plain Sight. Your opponent must subtract 1 from hit rolls that target units with this trait if they are more than 12 inches away. So that's pretty darn awesome if you're going to make a really nice Chaos gun line. If you've got like Havocs or a gun mounted Hell Brute, your opponent's trying to target them and you're like, ha, well -1 to your hit rolls, mate, because that's the way Alpha Legion work. And generally I see that working out really well for Alpha Legion players. Unless you're playing an opponent who is going to run in your face and take in combat, then yeah, this isn't going to help so much because they're going to be closing the gap or if they deep strike in. But generally if you're playing a lot of like gunline battles, I'm looking at you Tal, looking at you David, this is going to be a really good trait for you Chaos players and a real pain for some of your gunline armies. Assault armies, well, you're probably not going to have much trouble. And next is the Renegade Chapters. They get a Legion trait too, called Dark Raiders. Units with this trait can advance and charge in the same turn. So remember that time in 7th edition where everyone was complaining about the focus on Chaos being like, Raiders rather than Legions, and they were like, oh, it should be more Legion-like, and get Legion rules. Well, now they got one of the stellar Legion traits to play with. Being able to advance, jump out of a transport, advance, and then charge, absolutely awesome. I love it. I sometimes play Red Corsairs with Huron, and I play them usually with a lot of Hellbrutes as well. And this is generally going to go down so well, because when I play sort of Red Corsairs, I play them with Possessed as well. And I send the Hellbrutes, and I just love to get stuck in combat with them. And it's just a fantastic general Legion trait for them to have. And I'm looking forward to obviously getting more Chaos Space Marine games so I can try that out. So yeah, that's it for today's. Hopefully you learned something. Maybe you noticed I got loads wrong and generally maybe gave bad advice. So then correct me, let me know, and then hopefully I encourage you to read the comments as well. Please give me anecdotes of times when, if you've been playing recently, that the new rules in the Codex have helped you. Certainly I'm looking forward to giving them a go. And I'll be reading the comments section as well for any helps or advice you can give me as well. In my next section, which I promise will arrive pretty soon, I will be covering stratagems, artifacts and warlord traits, and I think that will cover the sort of general new rules of the Chaos Space Marines before I start looking at the units themselves. So thanks again for watching. please like, share, comment and subscribe, and check us out on social media because we sometimes post up our new painting projects, community stuff that's going on, rumours, etc. and all that jazz. So thanks again, and we'll see you on our Tabletop Salt Battle Report.